Hi, so in last class we talked about variables, and in this class we just want to talk about data types, Python and data types to be specific. So one of the examples we gave in the last class was term 10%, for example, being equal to 10, right? And this we said is, of course, we know this to be a whole number. But here in Python, we actually call them integers. So I'm just putting this to take notes, like I mentioned in the very first class what hashtag is used for in Python, commenting, right? So we have integers. This is basically an integer, a whole number, right? But we're not just left with that. We can also have something like height, for example, being equal to, let's say, 6.1, for example. So what we call this is, we call this float. This is a float. So we have integer, we have float as well. So these are the two types of numbers we can have. So we have numbers being integers or floats, right? We call them integers or floats, right? We can also have something like my underscore name is equal to, and then we have, for example, Tunde here, all right? So I'm hoping we also remember the underscore, snake casing, Python. We spoke about that in the last class. So we have my name is equal to Tunde, for example, and this that we have here is actually a string. So this is a string here, right? So strings are a bit more complicated than the regular, in the sense that every word that you want to write must be in the form of a string. So a string is just anything that you have in quotes. So every word that you have must be inside a string. But it's not every time you see a string that it's a word that is inside. So what I mean is I could have something like pin is equal to a string, but I could put a number inside it. Now this is a number, but it loses that mathematical expression. It no longer behaves like a number. So even though it's a number that is inside it, because it's a string, it no longer behaves like a number. So for example, I could have 1 plus 1, and we know that this is going to give us 2, which I'm going to show us much later, right? This is just your normal mathematical addition, right? I could also have 1, right? And also have plus 1, just ignore the errors that come, and that is going to give me 1, 1. I'm hoping you guessed that correctly. So it's going to give me 1, 1, right? It's not going to add them. It's actually going to do something we call concatenate them. So whenever you have two strings and you bring them together, it's called concatenation. Just shortly, I'm going to show you all of that in detail when we talk about the string methods and the things we could do with the string. So we have words, right? They must be as strings, but that doesn't limit it to just words. We can have numbers as strings. We can also have symbols as strings as well. So I can have all those symbols. I could put them inside of here, right? We take all of this off and just put them inside of here. So you can see this is symbols, right? Strings. So you can't have a symbol without the string. So the string, of course, you can see it gives us an error. So here it must come in the form of a string. Also, if I put a regular word, like let's say hello as a data type, you can see that it gives me an error, meaning that it's not recognizing what is there. Words must always come in the form of a string. If not, you're going to get errors, right? So these are the first three that we talked about: integers, floats, and strings. Now the last one is actually what we call booleans, right? And booleans are just ways of saying true or false. So we have true or false. These are booleans. It's like computer's way of saying yes or no. So you can have something like is it approved? And then you have something like true. Now please note that it's capitalized. It starts with a capital letter T. If I change it to a small letter t, you can see it's an error. I have to then put it inside a string, right? The same thing also happens or applies if we're going to work with false. Now of course you know that true means yes and false means no. So these are the four major data types that we're going to be working with. Much later we're also going to talk about data structures in a much more advanced class. But for now, I'll just leave you with this four. See you in the next class.